Welcome back, everyone. Boys, let's start off kind of where we ended last week's episode. World Junior roster, Canada's roster officially announced, and I think we kind of went through it last week. I mentioned there wasn't going to be a lot of surprises. They probably knew most of their roster going in regardless. What's your guys' just original thoughts based on what the final roster ended up being for Canada here? I mean, maybe the biggest surprise I saw was Ivan Kovic making the roster instead of Ratzlaff in net, but I wasn't overly shocked with anything else on in terms of who made it, who got cut. So I don't know if what you guys thought of the final roster decisions for Canada.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot on the roster decision. I have more thoughts on the team as a whole, which we're going to get into here obviously shortly, but I think really just the big one for me maybe whether you guys agree or not, I think is Seneca not making the team. I mean, he's certainly made his case, but other than that, I don't really have a lot on the actual roster that they've thrown together here.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Trav a little bit on that. In my opinion, I thought he should be on the roster, but the fact that he never got initially invited to the training or the training camp, I guess, um, probably made it a lot harder for him to be considered for this team because it feels like they already made their mind on him even before the training camp. And I think he showed well in like the two um, like games against the college team, but for some reason they just weren't a fan of his. And then I don't know, maybe like just looking at guys that were on it last year that didn't make it, that got cut, like Matthew Wood. He must have showed pretty poorly too, because it's not too often returnees get cut from the roster. So probably those two for me. And then, I guess Ratzlaff was kind of in the same boat. He didn't play it, I don't think, at all last year, but thought they would maybe go with him. But I guess, they are going a bit younger at quite a few of these positions for maybe experience or whatever it is going down the road. But I'd say those three guys for sure. I'm a little surprised didn't make it, but
Yeah, it's for anyone watching on YouTube. I threw up the what ended up being the roster here. I mean, Cool Boy Dan, Catford, Catton, Cowan, Gauthier, Howe, Luchenko, Martone, McKenna, Nadeau, Pinelli, Raycroft, Ritchie, and Jaeger, who we found out today Jaeger is going to wear the C, Ritchie's wearing the A. On defense, they had Akey, Bonk, Dickinson, Gibson, Molendijk, Mino, Price, and Schaefer. And then obviously Bjarnson, George, and Ivan Kovic in net. Molendijk's wearing the other A for Canada this year, so he's obviously a returning player. Trav, you touched on it. Let's get into it now. I mean, do we think that this roster going to be good enough to win a gold medal this year for Canada on home soil? Because there's so much turnover. I mean, last year was such an older team anyway, but there's so much talent missing from this roster that it's kind of there's going to be lots of uproar if they don't win, if they don't make at least the gold medal game.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're under a pretty watchful eye already, given the decisions that have been made. But the thing I just really wanted to say, and this just it continues to circle around the political or the politics of Hockey Canada is I think that there's a lot of good players on this team and not on this team. I think what's holding them back is the usage of the players and what they are doing with each of them individually. And what I mean by that is, like, I read the other day that they're running Gavin McKenna on the fourth line. I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck how old he is and how you think he should be brought up. The guy leads the CHL in fucking points, and you're running him on the fourth line. And just to go hand in hand with what you, I think it was last week that you mentioned, Brock, was, Easton Cow, and you see more as a third line energy guy. And I wouldn't be surprised if they run him as a top six. Like it's the decision making that I think faults this team more over than the players that are actually on it. So that's kind of where I stand on it. Is like I don't know. It's hard for me to say whether I think this is a gold medal team because, truthfully, I don't know what the other rosters really look like or know much about the players that are on them. But I think that's going to come down to a huge difference maker this year. Is are they utilizing the guys properly? Because based on some of the decision making and a few other little things that I've heard, I think they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit. So it seems.
It's again, I look at this roster and I know like there's guys on here that I don't know what their play style's like, but like a guy like Cowan, again, you said it, Trev, he's more of an energy guy. He's a lot like a Jet Luchenko, where in junior hockey he's a high power offensive guy, but when you put him with the best of the best, and how Luchenko looked early on this season in Philadelphia, he's at best a middle six forward in this. So a guy like Luchenko is a third, maybe second, even just a fourth line guy, just an energy shift guy. Same with guys like Tanner Howe, Ethan Gauthier, Cole Boyden's in there, Luca Pinelli. Like, I just look at this roster, and outside of Yager, Catton, those are maybe the only two guys I have ahead of McKenna for like offense, like generators on this roster. Callum Rich is going to be there, but he's more of a guy that just sets up. Like his vision's unreal. If you put even a third line of Richie, McKenna, and whoever, Richie and McKenna combination could be so deadly. But I 100% agree with you there, Trav. Like Canada's usage every year at this tournament is suspect at best, and they just never seem to figure it out until it's too late.
Perfect example was last year when with Celebrini and even this Raycroft guy, they barely got used. Anytime Celebrini was out there, he was making stuff happen. That Raycroft guy was scoring a goal a game last year in the O, and he could barely find any time out on the ice. So they just they have to put these things to bed and just put your best offensive guys out there when you need them. Like it looks like on this roster they have a lot of guys that'll fill in those other minutes nicely, but when you need goals or when you need a spark offensively, like you have 3 or 4 guys on the forward core that you can just throw out there and they should be able to make something happen.
And there's going to be so many people that look at this and say, yeah, but all these guys are over a point a game in the OHL or in the CHL anyway. That's great, because when you water down the competition and they're not playing the top players in their age group, it's easy to be a point a game. It's when you bring the team together like this and you put them against the best in the rest of the world in this age group, is where you really get to see how these guys react. And that's where I kind of get my conclusion with Cowan. He's a middle six guy at best, because last year he was started on the third line. He did really good. They pushed him up to more of a scoring offensive line. He didn't do as good. And it just showed like, hey, this guy's this is his skill set. This is what he's best at. To the point of offensive guys, like, they kind of left some of their best offensive players at home anyway. When you want to look at the straight numbers, Misa and Seneca both in the OHL, and Perek on the blue line even. You can argue Carter Yakmachuk from Calgary Hitmen. There's so many guys you could argue that if Canada's struggling for offense, there's a lot of finger pointing on guys who aren't there that probably should have been for the offensive year they're having right now.
They just gotta start looking at it as what are they doing in the CHL more than we think this guy or we want this guy to be this for us. Like, and JC, you said it, Rakoff being a prime example. Guy's a goal a game last season, doesn't really get much of a sniff last year in terms of a top line role. Like, it just, I don't know. I think you got to look at what they're doing at their home centers and utilize it, kind of based on the year that they're having. Like, I don't know. And at this point now, I'm just kind of reiterating the way I started this conversation and saying, like, these players aren't getting utilized properly, and it's the downfall of this team. And I'm starting to kind of realize that it's been the downfall of this team a number of the recent years.
I almost wonder, depending on how this year goes, I want your guys' thoughts. I don't know how much thoughts you guys have on this, but would Hockey Canada not be better to stop using CHL coaches and maybe see if there's a coach from one of the U Sport university teams? Like, pick the top coach in U Sport and have him come and coach them, because he knows nothing about these players, really, because these aren't guys that are going to go to university after junior. These are all guys that are fast tracked or well on their way to being pro hockey players by the age of 20. Why not bring in a coach that knows nothing about these guys? He has the camp to look at them, gets to assess them, and has no prior knowledge, no prior, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, no prior determination of how to slot them in. Like, would that something like that not be better, do you guys think, in terms of always picking, we'll go with this CHL coach this year because the tournament's in Ottawa, so Dave Cameron's the coach because he coaches the 67s. Why not pick the top Ontario University coach and just say, you're going to come coach these guys because you have no prior commitment with any of them, and you'll be completely unbiased in how you're going to formulate lines?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I'd be fine with, like, to even go further than that, just picking a coach. Like, if there's a guy that's currently unhired, that's a former NHL coach too. They're smart enough. They watch enough hockey that they'll know what to do, and they won't be biased in any sort of sense. They'll just they'll know what they see, and they'll be like, those are the guys I want to go with. It's just, I don't know how much say some of these coaches have compared to the say of Hockey Canada and the scouts they have and the management team that they have. I'd like to know kind of who really pulls kind of the horse here to make some of these decisions that end up being like kind of the final roster.
That just brings it back around to politics.
But I do want to say, though, before we get too far away from the roster, I'm interested in seeing this Bradley Nadeau kid play. He was very good in college last year, and he's been playing in the AHL this year, and like he's been putting up all right points. Like, I don't think I've ever seen him play. The things that I read, he's pretty skilled and has a very nice shot to him too. So I think he's a guy that hopefully, if what I read about him is right, that he actually gets ample opportunity, because he kind of seems like a guy that should be able to kind of bully his way through this tournament.
Yeah. I kind of have Nadeau, Jaeger. Honestly, I'd put like McKenna and Catton are four guys you just staple in the top six as offensive players and figure out who that third winger is on each of them. But like, to me, those are your four guys that are going to be your biggest offensive drivers. Like, Richie can do it, but at this level too, it's also maybe he's more of a two-way guy. Martone, he can do it, but he's now going to start to really face stiffer competition. So we'll see how effective he is. And a lot of the other guys, they're more of that. They're not so much offensive drivers. They're just that chip it in and just grind the other team down for offense instead of off the rush type offense, which guys like Jaeger, Catton, and McKenna are. So what's our overall thoughts just based on how this roster looks and before we even see like how they're really going to deploy everyone going into this tournament? Like, do we feel confident that this team's at least going to make kind of semifinals, barring some weird, unfortunate quarterfinal disaster? Like, should this team at least be playing for a medal?
I think that they should. I feel better looking at this roster at this time this year than I did looking at the roster last year before they headed out. I had no faith in that team before that they're really going to go anywhere. I think they kind of have a good, well-rounded team. Maybe want to see one or two more offensive pieces, but I kind of get where they're going. So I just want to see some of these guys play some big minutes, like McKenna and whatever, right? But I think they have a good opportunity to do it. I need to see more of these other rosters to see what they look like, but I don't see any reason why they're not for sure semifinal team.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on par with JC. I don't see why this team shouldn't be playing for a medal, but it's really difficult to say after that. Just circling back to just to our previous note there, JC, you brought up Bradley Nadeau. It's funny that you did because I was going to bring him up when we first started, when you kind of pulled up the graphic there, Brock. He was kind of one that stood out to me because, I know absolutely nothing about him. Didn't know he played in the AHL. I had zero idea where he played. The only reason he stood out to me was because I had seen a couple like roster predictions that had him in the top 6 of the forward group, and I was like who the hell is this guy? Never heard of him. So I gotta say right now, I'm putting an asterisk beside him as probably the one I'm most excited to see, just because I know absolutely nothing about him. Now there's a handful of guys on this team I don't know anything about either, but just based on where people were holding him in predictions and stuff, I'm excited. And now that you kind of informed me on where he is and where he's coming from there, JC, yeah, I'm excited to see him go to work here.
Put it this way, when he was drafted by Carolina like 30th overall,
Didn't know that either.
Everyone said it could be the steal of that draft because of his high skill upside.
Didn't know that either. Didn't know.
That's about all I knew.
I don't know a lick about this kid, but good for him.
Yeah, I remember last year after Canada, I think made the roster, got put out. I think it was Colby Armstrong was like, I don't know why this kid was not on the team.
Yeah, he was lighting it up in college last year too.
Yeah.
It just politics of Hockey Canada.
What school did he play for? Do you guys know?
Maine, I think.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say as a bigger school, but wasn't like one of the main big ones.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's Maine.
Yeah, kind of
Maine. He plays with his brother there. I think is good too. Like not as good, but
yeah, he kind of pulled a Makar and just went to a slightly smaller D1 school and that. But so before we move off World Juniors, here's the US's roster. I just picked this off of Instagram from Puck Report. They're maybe the only team that you could argue has better goaltending than Canada at this tournament. Like as far as my knowledge goes, Trey Augustine's a really good like high end. I'm actually surprised Fowler isn't here. That Jacob Fowler out of
he's not too old, right?
No,
he was too old.
I thought
No?
he was the same as August, unless he has a late birthday, and that's why. But
Man, it feels this Augustine kid has been here for 5 years.
because he played as I think he was a third goalie as an underager.
Guy doesn't age. He's going to be
But,
there
like,
next year too.
Yeah.
I don't know any other defense really other than Bouillon.
Cole Hudson.
I really like Bouillon's game.
Yeah, he's
From what I've
honestly
watched.
I know Sweden has some like big time like 19-year-old defenseman, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bouillon ends up the defenseman of the tournament.
No.
Yeah,
they've got their forward core
And
is pretty sweet.
of course, the
Yeah.
fucking Wild got Bouillon at fucking 12 or 14, whatever it was.
Yeah, that might have been a steal. I remember thinking that too.
Yeah.
Because Danny Briere didn't want to pick him because he's too small. But maybe we'll see a Trevor Connolly fucking meltdown here and cost his team like he did at the under 17s, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's honestly that's another like US have some
Right.
high-powered guys, but they don't seem to have maybe the depth that Canada has, I think.
Ryan Leonard might be one of the most dangerous players in this tournament.
He should be one of the top players.
Pumped to watch Hagens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Projected number 1 overall pick.
Honestly,
Gabe
I think
Perreault, he was there last year, was he not?
Yeah, he's one that I think Ranger fans are excited about him, but I think he's one you may have to pump the brakes on too, because I think he has to play with the right style of players to make him effective.
Well, the Rangers will screw that up.
He probably wants to stay as far away from the Rangers right now anyways.
Oh fuck.
What a dumpster.
Yeah, we'll get into them here after this, but
that's a decent roster. I don't
like honestly, like I think it's probably a coin flip, I think, right now between Canada, US, just based on the initial roster. How they deploy guys is going to be the big factor here.
Maybe we finally see it this year. Sweden actually not choking, maybe. Probably not, but
I don't think they have, I think, one line of forwards, and then everything else after that's going to struggle to score. But I think back to the Hagens, this tournament, I think, is really going to determine who that first overall might be. Because there's a lot of people out there saying like Martone's nipping, like could slide in. Schaefer's a guy that, depending on who wins the lottery, he could be the number 1. And obviously the big factor is we don't get to see Misa here, and he's just lighting it up in the O. So
I can't recall the last time we had a race that, I had a handful of guys up there. Like there's 4 or 5, right? That could easily go number 1 this year, and there's no clear cut.
I think Misa was kind of on the outskirts, but his hot starts brought him back in. It was kind of Hagens, Martone, and Schaefer at the start of the year. There's a Swedish kid that's there, but he's not really threatening for first overall. There's no real European threatening first overall. It's kind of between Hagens and then the 3 Canadians.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably 2020, maybe the last time, or there was a race like in terms of when it was Lafreniere Byfield race, like who's going 1, who's going 2 type thing. And Lafreniere went to the World Juniors and
Stutzla kind of made his case. Like he had a really good World Juniors that year.
Yeah, if it wasn't like Lafreniere,
I don't know if he was ever talked about at number 1, but he certainly made his case.
He made himself a top 3 pick of that tournament, but that was the tournament Lafreniere went like almost 2 points a game to lead Canada to gold, and that solidified him as that number 1 pick. But so that's we're kind of all on the same page. US Canada seem to be our 1-2 feeling going in. Obviously, Sweden and Finland are going to have something to say, and the Czechia seems to be starting to round the corner as a World Junior team again. So it's going to be an entertaining tournament, I think. Obviously, there's going to be so much storylines surrounding Canada just because you're on home soil and you didn't even make the semifinals last year. So
Yeah, they need to bounce back here.
yeah, they have the group to do it, but again, questionable decisions.
More importantly, I don't want to be live watching gold medal game and Canada's not in it.
Yeah, that would suck. Nothing beats the rush of excitement like seeing your team win live. Getting there is easy with Gametime. Thanks to the new Gametime picks, you can easily filter out the fluff and focus on Gametime's super deal, along with their other great and amazing deals. With Seat View, you get to preview your seat before ever buying. Plus, Gametime has the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation, and job loss protection, because life happens. As mentioned, Gametime Picks helps you curate the deals so that you find the best ticket price to any event, concert, comedy show, or theater event that you're going to. So take the guesswork out and relax about ticket purchases with Gametime. Download the Gametime app or go to gametime.co. That's gametime.co and create an account. Use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download or visit Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. We brought up the Rangers, brought up Lafreniere, kind of all that. They made back in headlines again. From the last time we talked about them, they haven't been good. They continue to lose. I think they've gotten one win since we last talked about the Trouba trade and all that. Another trade kind of sort of connected with Lafreniere, the 2019 draft second overall pick, Kappo Kakko, sending him to Seattle for Will Borgen, a second, and a third and a sixth. Sorry, got the graphic up here now. What do we think about this trade? Let's start from Seattle side. Just like what's Seattle hopefully getting in a guy like Kappo Kakko based on his first 5 years in the league?
On a quick note, a little more offense.
And that's something Seattle's needed.
Yeah.
I mean, let's maybe look at it this way. What's the downside for Seattle on this other than at worst you're getting another like third line guy that's has the potential to at least score 15 to 20 goals every year. Like that's probably the downside for Seattle right now. Because it's not like Kakko's Nail Yakupov himself and shown he has to be a top six guy, otherwise he can't play in this league. He's at least shown he can be a somewhat capable two-way forward. It's just maybe unlocking that offensive talent he had in his draft year.
Yeah, I think the downside for Seattle is that he kind of stays on the pattern that he's had in New York. I think I gotta think Seattle kind of looks at it maybe like, I know Kakko had some chances in New York, but in my honest opinion, I don't think he was truly given the chance to be the player or to reach the ceiling that he might have. And looking back on that draft, I don't know if Kakko's really going to live up to the number 2 pick, but I still believe that New York kind of maybe failed to develop him a little bit, and that there's still a ceiling for him to reach. And I think for Seattle, they're hoping that they can kind of push him to reach that ceiling and turn him into a more offensive, productive player. I think the downside for Seattle would be that he just he doesn't kind of change the course that he's been on the last little while. And then you just threw away an NHL ready defenseman and 2 draft picks for that, I guess.
I look at like he's right around. I think he's a year or two younger than when Seattle took Jared McCann in the expansion draft, and he became a 40 goal scorer just given a top 6 opportunity. I think that's, if I'm a Seattle fan, that's how you have to look at it. Is hopefully he's given a long stretch of opportunity to perform as an offensive player, and he actually finds that side of his game again. Because if that happens, like he's potentially he's a good threat for one of Wright or Benier's wingers. So, and Seattle's right now they need offense, and it's a good bet from Seattle is all I'm going to say on that. So
I'm not really too concerned about kind of the downside of this trade for Seattle. Borgen's a UFA at the end of the year. Who knows what would have happened when that time comes? Like a 3rd and a 6 is what it is. I think it's pretty good trade for them, as the upside that can be there is well worth any sort of risk that maybe he doesn't perform to the like he did in his 18 goal season a couple years ago. But like you said, like if that doesn't work out, he's still a usable NHL forward. He's got pretty good like underlying defensive numbers as a winger. So there's always that to fall on, but he's going to get a lot of more opportunity here in Seattle. And, there's kind of maybe a lot less pressure when he, away from the team that traded him, that kind of had a lot of stock in him compared to where he is now. He needed a bit of a new start, I think. His name has been kind of in there as what is this guy for a long time. So it'll be interesting. I want to see the start that he gets on. Hopefully, like if he gets on a good start, I think I won't be surprised, because it'll just be all that kind of pressure and negativity's gone from being in New York and all the other things that are going on with that team that it could probably be a full podcast length worth talking about with the Rangers. But I don't think they ever prepared him to fully succeed there. And especially, kind of right after, getting Lafreniere, and it's like, oh, well, now we got this guy to throw in there. And obviously he's outperformed him quite a bit. But yeah, long story short, I like the move for Seattle, and he's definitely going to get a lot more top 6 minutes there. Maybe playing with guys that he might have grow some better chemistry with.
yeah, jump to the Rangers side of that. I mean, Trav, you touched on it. Kakko was never really given a lot of like good opportunity in New York. Lafreniere was barely given some, and he exploded with it, which makes sense. But like you touched on it too, JC, we could do a whole pod. I just want to be quick on the Rangers here. I mean, is this one where they just starting? Is Chris Drury just starting to throw Hail Marys out the window here, just hoping for something to turn this team around? Because it just seems like after the Trouba situation seemed desperate just to get him off your roster if they were willing to waive him. And then you're doing a former 2nd overall pick who's still young enough to actually maybe turn things around in his career for a fairly underwhelming package. It just seems, I'm just not sure what the Rangers are doing here. I think I maybe want to shelve that for a little bit, just maybe give them till after Christmas to see if they turn it around at all before we. Otherwise, we can spend a pod and dive deep in on the Rangers a bit more. But
I just think I think Drury's feeling it, and he needed to do something. And maybe it would have been better to hold off and try something else. But this move just kind of seemed like a reek of desperation move and trying to please a fan base or some. I don't know. Like it's a hard one. Like Kakko did come out and say some things in the media like a day before it happened too, that he felt like he's the scapegoat. Like there should be other guys sitting, kind of not him. Maybe paraphrasing that a little bit, but I don't know how much that had to do about it either. But I kind of like that though for him. He's just like, I'm nowhere near the worst player on this forward core. Like, why am I being benched?
I think there's a locker room, like whole organizational issue there in New York right now. So, but Trav, I think you brought it up with Kakko being the second overall pick, and Justin, you shared this tweet actually from Peter Bob, who got the poll. If you're watching on YouTube, everyone highlighted right now. It's a photo of the top 19 picks in the 2019 draft. 8 of these players are no longer with their teams that drafted them. And outside of like Krebs, Newhook, and Byram, or maybe the 3 guys that they're not there because their team used them as trade chips to get better. Whereas everyone else, kind of the team just failed them. So like guys like Kakko, Kirby Doc, Philip Broberg, Vasily Podkolzin, and Lassie Thompson's the other one who he's just struggled to be an NHL player.
Soderstrom's not even in the league anymore.
I don't
even think he's in North America, actually.
No, he's back overseas, and it's just like Trevor Zegras might get added to this list. Dylan Cousins' name's out there too in terms of that. So I think this just goes to show at times where, bring it back to the World Juniors, Kakko had an unreal 2019 World Junior tournament, and that really vaulted him into that, like solidified him as a top 3 pick, I think. Because there's been a lot of debate now since his draft year that if he didn't have that type of tournament and if he didn't have the experience playing against men in Finland, he's probably down in more that kind of 10 spot, like right around where how Vasily Podkolzin ended up, just because his game's not all there when you really dissect it.
Man, Mort Seider at 6.
That was a steal. He was projected to go mid to late teens.
And he now, looking at it, 6 years later, like he should be up in top 3.
Here's a story for you. This draft, if Seider went lower, like down in where he was projected to go, he would have been playing in Owen Sound the next year.
Really?
Yeah, because they picked him in the import draft and basically were just praying, like said that if he got picked late teens and that, the NHL team was going to want him to come over to North America and play in the OHL. Unfortunately, Stevie Y decided to hit a nice fat blunt and take him at 6. But again, that's paid off nicely for them.
Yeah, sorry. No, you go ahead, Trev.
Oh, I was just gonna say Alex Turcotte is at number 5. There's really come into his own this year with the Canes. Bit of a late bloomer, I guess, to compare to the rest of the group. But I mean,
he's dealt with injuries though too.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But no, like again, I think you just look at it and it just shows that you draft these guys at 18 years old, and yeah, it's going to take them a while to really develop into the player they're supposed to be. Like you're going to get a Jack Hughes or a Moritz Seider who can step in and be what you think they are, but most guys can't do that.
It's actually kind of crazy. Like I'm just looking at this list here. Now this is arguable, but like as it sits right now, Boldy might be the second best player on this list. You could argue Seider in there and Cole Caulfield, but
I don't think that's a stretch. I was thinking that when I said that Sider should be top 3. I think Boldy should be up there too.
Yeah, I think Boldy might be the second best player in this list as it sits right now. Obviously, Jack Hughes is number 1. That's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah. You do a redraft, I bet you it's Hughes, and then depending on how the Rangers would want it, it's either Sider, Boldy, or probably your other top 3s.
Yeah, probably.
It's funny you brought up Cousins, though, because we were just talking about the Rangers. We could probably spend a podcast and a half on the state of New York hockey right now.
I had it in our notes to talk about the Sabres, but I might push that back to maybe next week just so we don't run too long here. Because, they're another disaster.
Yeah, it's no longer a dumpster fire. The dumpster's burnt and there's just still flames.
Yeah,
It's this Springfield tire fire. It's just gonna fucking burn forever.
Yeah. Nice thick black smoke looming in the air.
The 2024-25 NHL season still has the new car smell, and the action is just heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win or a goal score. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Let's kind of hear, boys, before, because the NHL, we're not quite about a third of the way through the season here now. We've kind of passed the whole that sort of U.S. Thanksgiving deadline for a lot of teams in terms of like how guys think they're going to be playoff bound or not. Coming into the Christmas, the trade freeze is, I think, tonight. As of this recording on Thursday, it's tonight at midnight. The trade freeze goes in effect. Let's look back at how our standing predictions kind of went right now. So for the Central Division, we really dropped the ball on Nashville, eh?
That's the most obvious one. As soon as you brought up that graphic,
between Nashville and then the Wild, like JC's the closest with the Wild. Trav, you and I completely gave
grab the Jets though, like.
Yeah,
but you know what? I bet if you poll, I bet 80% of people that had predictions at the start of the year had Nashville where we had them. Like it was just that it was the not the easy, but like look what they did in the off season. It's going to be good
after what they did last year.
Yeah,
but I mean the two free squares I think in the Central standing predictions were Colorado, Dallas. They're somewhere top 3, maybe like. After Colorado's start this year, probably top 4. But I mean, you look at Winnipeg and Minnesota, they're teams that you have really good goaltending and you have timely offense. That's essentially all those teams are, because Winnipeg's power play fucking carried them so much, and Hellebuck just being Connor Hellebuck. And the Wild, like Kaprizov's going, he's probably the front runner for the Hart.
He is.
Yeah, he is 100%.
And Fleury and Gustafsson have just turn back the clock from what they were, 2-3 seasons ago. Like, Minnesota's not anything special. They're just getting really good, like solid, strong goaltending right now and timely scoring from guys.
We're pretty on the ball with the Blackhawks.
Yeah, talk about another free space.
If we want to highlight a good part of this prediction, I think we did pretty good there.
That's talk about another free space though. But like, that's just one where then obviously look at our Pacific division here. Little more of a mishmash. Like, we're kind of all sort of right outside of how we saw the Flames. And like
nothing there's actually like no consistency here from any of us. Like
no.
Like most of the teams we have are in different spots. And they're like and none of us really matched. Oh, okay, our top 3 is all the same. Sorry, but
But again, I think again that was easy where Vegas and Edmonton were free squares. So they were the free squares. Vancouver, we kind of just thought of whatever, but
the Kings are doing really well this year compared to kind of like where we have them at the like in this like.
Yeah, I really thought they were gonna go backwards this year, and they have not.
Yeah, they've.
I would really like to see them play somebody other than the Oilers in the first round this year. I want to see what they're about this year, and I don't.
Unfortunately, the way it's going,
we're not going to find out if they play the Oilers. I don't think.
No, unfortunately, the way it's going though, they're gonna play the Oilers.
Yeah, I know. 4 years in a row.
Vegas is running away with the division right now, and Edmonton's heated up, but I don't think they'll catch them.
I mean, we didn't really talk about them a lot, like for their hot start in the Flames, but they're starting to come back down to where we thought they would be.
Yeah,
they're on a bit of a heater there, and then
I think again you're just starting to see how many holes that lineup does have.
Yeah. But that Dustin Wolf kid's looking good though for them. They've got a player there, I think.
He's like Vezina caliber this year.
Oh yeah, he's doing really good. He's probably the reason they're where they are right now. But that's not the right one.
I'd still like to kind of believe that the Canes might slip up here in the second half, and I could see Vancouver kind of going on a hot streak here. We might see an Oilers Canucks first round. I'm also just telling myself that in hopes that we don't see a fourth round of Canes and Oilers, but it is something I do truly believe that could, realistically happen.
Yeah, that one shot.
I kind of think the Canes are maybe a little bit outplaying themselves at the moment, but I don't know. I might be wrong. Maybe they are legit.
The Canucks need their 2 best players to stop hating each other.
Yeah. But the Metro, we've touched on how bad the Rangers are the last few weeks, and we all had them winning this thing. So that right there just scraps everything. Not to mention, JC and I had Washington way down.
Yeah.
But again, you talk about free squares, Devils, Canes. I mean, fuck, the Rangers should have been a free square in this division, and they've dropped the ball big time.
Yeah, they're in 6th in the division now. Like, they are really falling out.
Yep. Like, they're right there with the Pens and the Islanders and Flyers and all that.
They're only 2 points up on Columbus, who's at the bottom.
That's actually what's maybe the bigger surprise, the Rangers' downfall, or just how strong Columbus has started this year for what they were.
It's pretty crazy to say how strong it is, like being at 12 and 15, but they are playing a lot better than I thought that they would be.
Yeah.
And then I think at this point of the season, Carberry is your Jack Adams.
Yeah, I think he's running away with it right now too.
Oh yeah, he has to be.
But yeah, I was actually thinking about that, like that division the other day, like for our preview, and like how we all had the Rangers, and just kind of like looking over their roster and seeing what they're doing now. It's just,
I think we kind of got a lot, us along with like a lot of like fans that don't really watch a lot of the Rangers games, is you get distracted with guys like Panarin, Zibanejad, and Fox and Shesterkin just carrying that team.
yeah.
Whereas they're not really doing it this year, and all the holes and flaws of that roster are showing.
I think the worst pick looking at our Atlantic standings here got to be the Red Wings.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I don't know. The Panthers in 6 pretty bad too.
I was gonna say, my Panthers pick is
I was just thinking that right before you said it too. I was like, that's maybe a bit of a outdated milk pick, but
I mean, Buffalo too. I had them actually doing something, and they haven't.
11-game losing streak. That's something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
No palm trees. No palm trees.
Trav, you don't have one as bad as my Panther pick, but Ottawa in 8th is a choice too, based on where they're at right now.
Yeah, that's not aging overly well either.
Hey,
there was a small stint where that was maybe aging kind of good, but and then they turned it on here the last 10 games or so, and they've got themselves in a wild card spot, which I'm happy to see.
Linus Hallmark has been on fire.
Yeah, they're finally getting goaltending.
Yeah.
But yeah, that.
Speaking of Buffalo,
Yep.
we just want to wish snapping her around's very own Justin Cummins on getting the call up to the Sabres from the Paisley Legends, because they're in desperate need of help, and so they called upon the Paisley Legends old timers team, said, "You guys got anybody for us?" And so JC is going up to play with the Sabres.
They're looking for someone that can shoot either top shelf snipe or shoot it high, wide, and rings around the boards.
Yeah, miss the net 9 feet wide. You'll fit right in.
Can't be doing much worse, that's for sure.
So, no.
Hey, you can get them to 12.
That's exactly it.
Well,
help get them to 12.
The streak will be alive.
Yeah. Okay, I know we had other notes here, guys, to touch on, but kind of ran a little longer than I thought. Maybe one last thing, just we touched on with the Jets' hot start, the Wild, how they're playing. Are those? Do we feel they're two teams in the Central that are just gonna continue to run the division, or are those kind of mirages, and are they gonna fall back down, and teams like Colorado and Dallas are actually gonna step up there?
I think as of right now, the Jets, in my mind, are winning this division. I think Minnesota is gonna start to kind of come back to earth a little bit, and I think the Jets will win this division by a solid state. But just with their recent kind of like they're 8-9-1 since their 15-1 start. The Jets themselves have kind of come back to earth a little bit. And I'm just kind of starting to look at this team as maybe a regular season team. And I know there'll be a lot of people out there that would probably disagree with that, but I think the only way that this team goes on a deep playoff run is if Hellebuck plays the way he's been playing for them, and that's yet to be determined. last year still sits. So
Yep.
I think the Jets are more likely to sustain this than the Wild, but I pretty much agree with everything Trav said about, like, I don't know how, unless you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, how you can argue that they are just basically a regular season team because they haven't proved it. They proved it one year when they went to the conference finals and then bowed out to Vegas in 5. Pretty much since then, anytime they've made the playoffs, there's been a bit of hype to them. Maybe other than the other year they played Vegas because they're like the 8th seed. But, last year there was a lot of big hype around them too. And, they kind of got worked against the Avs. And so, like, I'm pretty much under the impression, I've always kind of been under the impression it's just, you got to prove it. Like, you got to show something when it counts. And the Jets haven't been able to do that. That can always change. That can change any year, but it hasn't yet.
Yeah. Every team's a regular season team until they actually prove something in the playoffs. So that's all we got for this week, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Next week we'll circle back to the Avs. They've completely shaken up their crease. Maybe touch more on some other things around the league, and we'll get a better sense of how Team Canada is going to send out their lines for the World Junior Tournament. So,
boots on the ground.
Yeah, Justin will be reporting live from every game. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Catch y'all next week.